July 1988. A US Navy cruiser is battling Iranian gunboats in the Persian Gulf. Suddenly, its radar picks up a mystery aircraft. Is this plane friend or foe? They have 7 minutes to decide. As the aircraft draws ever closer, the pressure mounts.
If you do not change course to 270 immediately...
And the captain is faced with a terrible choice. Shoot it down or risk the lives of his own crew.
Subject to United States Defense Measures.
3,000. We're not getting any oxygen. We have the terrain alarm. Aero Peru 603. We are in an emergency.
It's a routine short-haul flight, but an Iranian passenger jet is heading into mortal danger.
It's opening fire with guns.
It's approaching a war zone in which a US Navy ship is engaged in combat. The crew are on a state of high alert. Anything that draws near is seen as a threat.
Air contact still inbound, increasing speed and descending range 11
United
miles.
States naval warship.
Closing and descending 1,000.
Now you're in real serious business.
You are standing into danger?
Wait a minute. I could be dead.
Range 13 miles.
The aircraft is not responding to warnings. Iran Air 655 seems oblivious to the danger. In 1988, Iran and Iraq have reached a stalemate in a savage 8-year conflict. It's a war of attrition, and both sides' oil exports are a target. The United States has become the chief watchdog of the Persian Gulf. Over 30 US warships protect neutral tankers. Dawn, July the 3rd. After a month on routine patrol, the USS Vincennes is heading towards port in Bahrain. Her crew are due a few days' rest and recuperation. But while his men are looking forward to the July the 4th break, Captain Will Rogers is already up. He's received disturbing reports from US intelligence, warning him to expect trouble from Iranian forces over this holiday weekend.
Yeah.
In the Vincennes Combat Information Center, the watch officer has received an urgent message from another ship in the US fleet that Iranian gunboats are harassing a Pakistani merchant vessel.
Skipper, you better come down. Sounds like the Montgomery's got her nose in a beehive.
I'll be right there.
The frigate USS Elmer Montgomery is north of the Vincennes near the narrow Strait of Hormuz. It's here that Iranian gunboats have been most active in attacking oil tankers as they exit the Persian Gulf. Designed to protect an aircraft carrier group, the Vincennes is a billion-dollar Aegis cruiser. It's armed with Mark 26 missile launchers, Harpoon anti-ship missiles, 2 5-inch guns, and the Phalanx close-in weapons system, which fires over 3,000 rounds a minute. But what makes the ship so special is its high-tech radar. The phased array Spy-1 can simultaneously search and track over 100 targets over 300 kilometers away. To crew members like Mike Zunino and Mark Nielsen, the Vincennes is simply Star Wars at sea.
I was very proud. Just technically, it just felt like a strong, secure ship to be on. We felt invincible in a way.
We had some of the most up-to-date weaponry and the radar and everything else. There wasn't a whole lot that we couldn't do.
Inside the Combat Information Center, Captain Rogers oversees a state-of-the-art computerized command and control system. His large-screen displays give him an instant picture of the tactical situation. Lieutenant Commander Vic Guillory is the tactical action officer responsible for surface warfare.
Vic, what do we got on visual?
Got a cluster of bog hammers here near the Montgomery. Another cluster may be closing a merchant vessel.
Over a dozen Iranian bog hammer gunboats appear to be preparing to attack a merchant ship. Bog hammers are the generic name for fast speedboats manned by the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, a fundamentalist paramilitary force.
We knew that they had rockets. We knew that they had machine guns. We knew that if they got within certain range that they could, you know, literally fire off their rockets and cause grave danger.
In 1988, Iranian forces have been attacking up to 13 foreign tankers per month. Their aim is to prevent Saddam Hussein from exporting Iraqi oil. Captain Rogers sends his helicopter, call sign Ocean Lord, to investigate just what the gunboats are up to.
Roger that. Vincennes out. Vector in Ocean Lord.
Ocean Lord is a Sikorsky Seahawk, a twin-engine helicopter designed for reconnaissance, anti-submarine, and anti-ship warfare.
Roger, Trinity Sword, we read you.
Vectoring toward Montgomery now.
Ocean Lord's pilot soon finds the gunboats. They're not acting suspiciously. But he flies too close to the Iranian craft. The response is immediate, a burst of anti-aircraft fire.
Jesus! Trinity Lord, this is Ocean Lord 2-5. We are taking fire. Executing evasion. Clearing.
2-5, this is Trinity Sword Actual. Is anyone hurt? Confirm hostile fire, over.
Trinity Sword, no injuries. We confirm 8 to 10 rounds of airburst from the northernmost group of Iranian small craft. Over.
Ocean Lord, this is Trinity Sword Actual. Return immediately to Vincennes cover. Close Ocean Lord's position at best speed, bearing 330.
Under the U.S. rules of engagement, Captain Rogers is allowed to respond with force in self-defense.
30, full speed.
Set general quarters.
Officer of the deck, set general quarters.
The situation is escalating rapidly.
General quarters, all hands man your battle stations.
When we went to general quarters, all of the hatches had to be tightened down. Everything had to be at a certain level of defense in case something happened.
Once you get to that station, you're supposed to, you don your helmet and your gas mask. Nobody's allowed to move around the ship. You're to stay at your battle stations doing your job.
Only 6.5 minutes after Rogers calls general quarters, the Vincennes is ready for combat. The crew have practiced the drill many times, but today it's for real. By chance, a Navy media crew is on the bridge filming as the ship surges north at over 30 knots. Captain Rogers is now heading for a lethal confrontation with the Iranian gunboats. It will be the Vincennes' first time in action. The outcome will be catastrophic. July the 3rd, 1988. The USS Vincennes powers north towards the Strait of Hormuz. Another US ship has reported aggressive activity by Iranian gunboats. Those boats have already fired on the Vincennes helicopter.
Jesus!
Captain Will Rogers III has been in the Gulf for just over a month, but he's already established a reputation as a commander who is prepared to take robust action. His ship is nicknamed the Robo-Cruiser.
The deck, set general quarters.
Meanwhile, some 87 kilometers away at Iran's Bandar Abbas airport, Iran Air Flight 655 is waiting to push back for a routine 28-minute hop across the Strait of Hormuz to Dubai. 37-year-old Mohsen Rasayan is the captain. His brother Hussein knows he's dedicated to the job.
655 standing by for ATC clearance.
He was very enjoying what he was doing. He really liked it. He was logging so many hours, over 10,000 hours of flight.
Request update on status of IR.
Captain Rasayan's flight is delayed. It's 27 minutes behind schedule due to a passenger with immigration problems. The holdup will soon confuse the crew of Vincennes, despite all their sophisticated technology. On the bridge, a Navy media crew continues to film as the Vincennes closes within striking distance of the Iranian Boghammer gunboats.
About 3 degrees north, steady course 015 I. We're about 3 degrees, go course 015. Got a visual on a Boghammer. See it?
Even though his helicopter has already been shot at, Captain Rogers only has the authority to open fire if he believes his ship is under direct threat. In the Gulf haze, it's hard to see just what the gunboats are doing.
One appears to be going out to starboard and one's in the middle.
Just off the starboard bow has a machine gun on it, according to 6.
But Captain Rogers doesn't have to wait for the gunboats to open fire. If they behave aggressively, that's reason enough for him to take the first shot.
Coming inbound fast. 1 at 350 is inbound.
As they turned and began to maneuver and close us fairly high speed and on erratic courses, we asked permission to fire a warning shot.
This is Vincennes. Request permission to engage Boghammer Group.
The service commander for the Gulf is on board his ship in Bahrain. Captain Richard McKenna has no hesitation in granting permission.
The fact that the helicopter was shot at virtually required a response.
Vincent, this is Gulf Sierra. Take Boghammer Group with guns.
The rules of engagement at that juncture were quite clear, and so there was no question as to what was required at that juncture.
I say again, take Boghammer Group with guns, over.
Gulf Sierra, this is Vincennes. Opening fire with guns. Assumed hostile track 4456. Vincennes out. You can fire for effect.
Making track with guns.
It's 9:43 a.m. A routine encounter in the Persian Gulf has become deadly serious.
The ship shakes. It's a 5-inch gun. I mean, there's a lot of powder behind it to propel that projectile.
Oh man, he's right behind him. 300.
This is the first time that the crew of the Vincennes have ever seen action.
It's a 028 now.
Combat was, that was the furthest thing probably from any of us. Even though we were a combat ship, it was one of those things. It's like it'll never happen to us, but yet it did.
The gunboats are now shooting back, but their fire is falling well short. The Vincennes and the Montgomery take them on together. The battle is fast-moving, with frequent changes of course.
We were maneuvering rapidly because, in the first place, my desire was to keep them at arm's length, if you will. We were shifting targets as rapidly as we could, and Montgomery at the same time was directed to engage small craft, which he did.
Verify me rounds to the train.
The Vincennes and the Montgomery are now locked in a full-scale sea battle. Anything that approaches the U.S. ships will be assessed as a possible threat.
Battery released 10 rounds. Weapons.
Lieutenant Commander Scott Lustig is the officer responsible for alerting the captain to potential airborne threats. He's been tracking an aircraft that has suddenly changed course and is now heading towards the Vincennes.
4472, Iranian P-3, range 62 miles.
The plane has been identified as an Iranian P-3 Orion, a long-range maritime surveillance aircraft. In a well-rehearsed procedure, the Vincennes warns the P-3 on a military frequency that he's being tracked.
270, this is United States Naval Warship. Request you state your intentions.
U.S. warship, this is Iranian Papa 3. Our intention is search mission. We keep clear of your unit.
The pilot promises to keep his distance, but Captain Rogers knows the P-3 is still watching him on radar. He's concerned that it could call in an Iranian airstrike. This battle is becoming more dangerous by the minute.
Yeah, I want rounds in the tray. Give me a firing solution for that northernmost group of Boghammers. Scott, keep me updated on the P-3.
Meanwhile, with all his passengers finally on board, Captain Rizian is ready to depart.
Confirm, taxi V5 is open.
Iran Air 655.
On the 3rd of July, there are 10 civilian flights scheduled from Bandar Abbas. But the Iranian Air Force also uses this airport. US intelligence has warned that the recent transfer of F-14 fighters here represents an increased threat.
Have a nice flight.
655 cleared for takeoff.
Captain Razayan has no way of knowing that Iran Air 655 is heading directly towards a raging sea battle. Within seconds of liftoff, the Vincennes detects Flight 655. Sophisticated as the radar is, it cannot determine the size or type of aircraft. Identification Supervisor Anderson begins a routine to establish whether the aircraft is a friend or foe. His first step is to use a system called IFF.
All large aircraft have IFF. They all have identification friend or foe. Every aircraft has its own code, and you're able to look up that code and say, okay, it does give you more information.
Anderson sets out to identify the IFF signal of this incoming track. At the press of a button, an electronic pulse radiates into the atmosphere. And aircraft transponders automatically bounce back an electronic reply, squawking the signature modes and codes that reveal whether the aircraft is a friend or foe. Modes 1, 2, and 4 indicate military aircraft. Iran Air 655 has squawked Mode 3.
Everybody has Mode 3. So that alone doesn't identify a non-hostile aircraft. It could be civilian, it could be military.
As a military aircraft could conceal its identity by squawking Mode 3, Anderson's next step is to consult a commercial air schedule. He looks to see if there's a passenger flight due to depart from Bandar Abbas at this time. But he finds nothing.
Unidentified Iranian aircraft on course 203, speed 303 knots, altitude 4,000 feet. This is United States.
So the Vincennes now tries to contact the plane directly on a military distress frequency.
40 miles from you. You are approaching United States naval warship in international waters. Request you state your intentions. Over.
But there's no response. For all its state-of-the-art technology, the Vincennes doesn't have a radio tuned to civil air traffic control frequencies.
Unidentified aircraft on course 206, speed.
So the only option left is for the ship to call the mystery aircraft on the civilian international air distress frequency.
You are approaching a United States naval warship. Request you remain clear.
But there's still no answer from Flight 655. With the incoming plane closing in on the Vincennes at 8 kilometers every minute, Anderson is now alarmed to discover its IFF signal appears to have changed. The plane is squawking both Mode 3 and Mode 2, 1100. When Anderson consults his code list, he makes a disturbing discovery. The 1100 suggests that this plane could be an Iranian F-14 fighter.
All stations IDS, I have a possible Mode 2 on track 4131, 1100, which breaks as an F-14.
Possible Mode 2. Breaking as an F-14. I repeat, incoming Mode 2.
Anderson's words spread like wildfire throughout the CIC. The aircraft is now labeled as an F-14 fighter on the tactical displays in front of Captain Rogers. 48 kilometers away, the Airbus with its 290 passengers climbs out over the Persian Gulf. They have no idea that they've been misidentified and are flying into danger. An Iranian passenger jet heading for Dubai is unknowingly flying directly towards a US warship engaged in battle in the Strait of Hormuz. On board the USS Vincennes, Identification Supervisor Anderson thinks the airliner is an Iranian fighter jet.
Which breaks as an F-14.
Possible Mode 2.
In the Combat Information Center, Flight 655 is now labeled as a hostile F-14. In the 1970s, the US sold 80 F-14s to their then ally, the Shah of Iran. They are the most up-to-date fighter in the Iranian Air Force. The Vincennes crew think they're under attack.
My heartbeat was way up, my blood pressure was way up. It was like, wow. I mean, the adrenaline was just flowing.
Lieutenant Commander Scott Lustig is Captain William Rogers' anti-air warfare coordinator. With the incoming plane only 45 kilometers away, he seeks permission from headquarters to shoot it down if it comes too close.
My intention is to engage at 20 nautical miles if he does not turn away. Do you concur? Over.
You should warn aircraft first, then take it under fire.
You start crossing 20 miles, and that's an absolute threat to the ship. You're out there in the middle of the ocean. It's serious business.
The pressure on Captain Rogers is mounting. But at this critical moment, just when he should be focusing on this new threat, his attention is drawn back to the battle with the gunboats.
We've got a foul bore down here.
Captain, we have a situation with Mount 51.
In the midst of combat, the Vincennes' forward 5-inch gun has jammed.
Right, full rudder turn.
Bridge, CIC.
Hard to port. Steady ship's course. 280 degrees, maintain speed.
Stand 25 knots.
Rogers is forced to turn his ship at high speed, swinging the cruiser's rear gun around to face the incoming fire.
Right standard.
The ship leans, so if anything was not tied down, it of course went everywhere. It went sliding off, up against the wall. It turned sharp enough that if you were standing, you had to hold on to something to keep from falling over.
Bring aft gun to bear now.
As Captain Rogers struggles to keep the gunboats engaged, Captain Rezaian is busy with the routines of climbing to cruising altitude.
FIR 58, Dubai 0715.
Confirm you are squawking 6760.
Affirmative.
Confirmation that his aircraft is transmitting the correct civilian IFF code, so that it can be easily identified on radar. In the Vincennes Combat Information Center, Lieutenant William Mountford sees that the approaching plane is now squawking a Mode 3 IFF response. He thinks it may not be a military aircraft after all.
Sir, possible calm air.
Captain Rogers acknowledges the warning, but he's still concerned by the plane's failure to respond.
The aircraft was warned a number of times, continued to close. Time is a demon here. If I have a long time to sort things out, you're going to take more time to look at this and more time to look at that.
Unidentified aircraft on
As Flight 655 crosses the critical 37-kilometer threshold, the Vincennes warns it once again to alter course or risk the consequences.
01, 20 miles from you. You are standing into danger and may be subject to United States defensive measures. Request you remain clear of me.
Captain Rogers now has the authority to shoot the plane down.
Captain, do you wish to engage at 20 miles? Captain, do you wish to engage the target at 20 miles?
I had difficulty at 20 miles. I just did not want to shoot. I could not believe that this was really happening to us.
Captain, do you wish to engage the target at 20 miles?
Negative.
Captain Rogers has delayed firing, hoping that the plane will finally respond to the Vincennes' warnings. But what happens next destroys that faint hope. Petty Officer Leach is the Vincennes' tactical information coordinator. He's responsible for ensuring that all air contacts are properly tracked. What he reports now seems to remove any doubts. This is a hostile aircraft.
Altitude declining.
They see the plane diving towards them, a classic attack profile.
Now you're in real serious business, because anything can happen at that point. Whether that aircraft might launch something at you, it could be the aircraft itself. 15 miles, that's pretty close and pretty serious.
Iranian aircraft on course 211, speed
Track 4131 approaching 13 nautical miles.
United States naval warship operating in international waters.
Wait a minute. I could be dead. the tension is just continually rising during this whole time. Everybody was on edge. Everybody was like, oh my God, what's going to happen next?
Subject to United States defense measures.
Inbound air contact, closing and descending 1,000 feet per mile. Range 13 miles.
Oh my God, it's getting closer. It's getting closer. What's the captain going to do? What's going to happen? You know, what are they going to do?
Iran Air 655 now signs off with Bandar Abbas Air Traffic Control.
8.4. Have a nice flight. Thank you. Good day.
God damn it, he's getting close.
Mark, incoming bog hammer, bearing 042.
Air contact still inbound, increasing speed and descending, range 11 miles.
Captain Rogers' worst fear is that the Vincennes might face the same fate as another ship, the USS Stark. A year earlier, an Iraqi fighter launched 2 Exocet missiles at it. 37 sailors were killed, and the ship nearly lost. An inquiry blamed the incident on failures in command. The Stark had not defended itself. Its captain was reprimanded and allowed to resign from the Navy.
Captain, air contact still inbound, increasing speed and descending, range 11 miles.
Captain Rogers isn't about to make the same mistake.
Time is a demon here. At some point in time, you have to make the decision. When the aircraft reached a little over 10 miles, at that point in time, I either make the decision then or I don't make it at all, because I reached minimum weapons range.
It's the moment of truth. Captain Rogers turns his fire authorization key.
Take order, track 4131.
Do I have a take order on the contact?
Yes, take.
Birds away. Rails clear.
Iranian aircraft on course 209, speed 353 knots.
As the final warning goes out on the military air distress frequency, Rogers keeps his finger on the hold fire button so he can destroy the missiles if the aircraft finally responds.
Estimate 10 seconds to intercept.
Up on the bridge, the crew has confirmed the kill. The plane they believed was attacking them has been destroyed. Captain Rogers thinks he has saved his ship from destruction. Nothing could be further from the truth. Far from saving his crew, Rogers has just made a decision that will shock the world.
God damn it, he's getting close.
At the height of a naval battle with Iranian gunboats in the Persian Gulf, the USS Vincennes has detected an incoming aircraft.
Take order, track 4131.
In the ship's combat information center, that plane has been misidentified as an Iranian F-14 fighter. After the plane has failed to respond to warnings, Captain William Rogers has shot it down. But Rogers has made a fatal mistake. He's destroyed an Iranian passenger jet flying in an international air corridor. 290 passengers and crew are dead. Iranian television broadcasts distressing footage of their bodies floating in the Gulf. For Captain Rogers, the burden is heavy. Whatever mistakes have been made, he bears the ultimate responsibility. But for the victims' families, it's worse. Captain Rezaian's elder brother, Hossein, tries to identify his remains in a temporary mortuary in Bandar Abbas.
I try not to imagine where I went to. I try to forget it, and when I look at those bodies, I just can't control myself, and I just try to think about something else, not to think of what I saw.
Captain Rezaian's body is never recovered.
Really, I'm shattered. Our family, especially his kids, his wife, my parents, which they're still living, and there is not a day that they don't talk about this, of what happened, why it should have happened.
There's an immediate international outcry. The world wants to know how a cruiser with a state-of-the-art combat system could have mistaken a passenger airliner for an attacking Iranian fighter.
Captain, do you swear that the evidence you are giving in this matter, now an investigation...
The US government appoints Rear Admiral William Fogarty to conduct an inquiry to find out what went wrong.
My first reaction was, it was a tragedy. The thing that stuck the most to me was, you've got a lot of responsibilities ahead of you, Fogarty, and probably some sleepless nights.
And nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
The inquiry is conducted in accord with the Uniform Code of Military Justice. The stakes are high. Investigative journalist Roger Charles is a former Marine officer who's examined the story.
You're looking at a guy who's on top of the world. He's the captain of the billion-dollar Aegis cruiser. And now he's sitting at a table facing possible court-martial and, even prison time.
Admiral Fogarty's team now scrutinizes the actions of the Vincennes crew in forensic detail. When Flight 655 first appears on radar, the USS Vincennes is in the midst of a battle with Iranian gunboats. All aircraft within a radius of 100 kilometers are monitored to ensure they do not pose a threat. So Identification Supervisor Anderson starts by checking his commercial air schedule to determine if this is a passenger flight. But he's confused. The schedule lists departures in local time, but Anderson is unsure whether that means the time in Bandar Abbas or Bahrain time, which is used on the ship.
You have the almost 30-minute delay caused by the late departure of IRR 655 due to a passenger with a visa problem. Then you have the 30-minute different time zone. So he looks at it and he's seeing there's nobody within an hour scheduled to be over us.
The IFF system is supposed to distinguish friend from foe. Admiral Fogarty knows it's critical to establish how the Vincennes could have confused a commercial airliner squawking Mode 3 with a fighter emitting Mode 2.
And in your mind, that was not Com Air.
In my mind, sir, it was not a Com Air.
And why?
Because I had saw that Mode 2 squawk, sir.
The Mode 2 was the big indicator for you?
Yes, sir.
From intelligence, Fogarty discovers that as Flight 655 prepares for takeoff, an Iranian F-14 is also on the tarmac at Bandar Abbas. It now appears that although Anderson rolls his ball tab to hook Flight 655 as it takes off, he leaves it hooked for almost 90 seconds. So although the hook symbol moves towards the Vincennes, the system is still reading IFF signals from the airport at Bandar Abbas. It's a human error caused by poor design on this high-tech warship.
He left the ball tab on Bandar Abbas. So what we believe happened, and I'm pretty sure this is exactly what happened, he picked up the Mode 2 of the Iranian fighter that was getting ready for takeoff behind the Airbus.
The identification of an F-14 appears to confirm intelligence, warning Captain Rogers to anticipate trouble over the July the 4th weekend. He now believes the aircraft is part of a coordinated strike on the Vincennes from both sea and air.
Sir, possible calm air.
So he places less weight on the warning that the incoming plane is possibly a commercial airliner.
Do you recall Lieutenant Montfort saying, calm air, calm air?
I absolutely remember him telling me that, and I think I raised my hand or something to that effect to indicate that I'd heard him.
You held up your decision to fire.
Yes, sir.
Why?
I wanted every bit of information I could get. IFF was an indicator, but I didn't care whether 1100 was an F-14 or that Falker that flies around out there. But at this point, I thought they always talk to us.
Iranian aircraft on course 211.
The Vincennes transmits a total of 10 radio warnings. Why does Flight 655 never respond?
What we do know for sure is the aircraft did not respond to the warnings. He had to have something, he being the commanding officer, as proof that this was commercial air. He never got that.
Unidentified Iranian aircraft on course 20.
But the Vincennes transmits 7 warnings on a military frequency that Flight 655 cannot receive.
The Airbus did not even have a radio that was set or could accept the military air distress frequency. I mean, it's just not something they had. They had no need for it. They were a commercial airplane.
The Vincennes broadcasts only 3 warnings on the civil distress frequency. But they don't clearly identify exactly who the ship is trying to contact.
Unidentified aircraft on course 210, speed 350, altitude.
The Vincennes radio talkers are citing the aircraft's ground speed.
Bearing 201, 20 miles from you. You are standing into danger and may be subject to United States defensive measures.
But Captain Razayan's instruments show airspeed, a relative measurement. Flight 655's indicated airspeed could have been 50 knots slower than the 350-knot ground speed cited by the Vincennes.
So if the pilot hears that, well, who are they talking to? They haven't identified us. They must be talking to maybe the P-3 or maybe some other Iranian aircraft.
Throughout its flight, Iran Air 655 transmits its squawk code, the unique label that tells radars what flight it is. If the Vincennes had called out that squawk code, Captain Razayan could have known immediately they were talking to him. But the US Navy does not require its radio operators to use this code when talking to civilian aircraft. As Flight 655 nears his ship,
Captain, do you wish to engage at 20 miles?
The pressure on Captain Rogers becomes intense.
Captain, do you wish to engage the target at 20 miles?
When you look at the time window that he had, he waited till the very last minute. And it becomes a point of, am I going to shoot or am I not going to shoot and wait, in which case he would not be following his responsibilities to protect his ship and his crew.
The decisive factor in Captain Rogers' decision to fire are the reports he receives that the plane is descending towards him, apparently about to attack.
Altitude declining.
It's the crucial moment. The inquiry team presses Tactical Information Coordinator Leach on his call.
Okay, were you reporting descending elevations over the net?
Over the internal net? Yes, sir.
So in other words, when you saw that track, that aircraft start descending, you were reporting that up to TAO, CO, Gulf Whiskey?
Yes, sir.
Like an aircraft's black box, the Vincennes computers have recorded all the data on the Combat Information Center's screens. Those records show that Iran Air 655 had never descended.
It was, in fact, ascending the whole time. That was a revelation that we had not anticipated.
Altitude declining.
Is it possible that somebody, although the data showed perhaps that it was going up, would say it's going down, descending?
Fogarty sends a medical team, including a psychiatrist, to the Vincennes. They report that a condition called scenario fulfillment could have played a part in the tragedy.
Range 13 miles.
And as it turns out, where you believe something so badly is going to happen, that whether the data shows you it's not the case, you believe it's happening.
Had those in command on that day checked their monitors, they would have seen that Flight 655 was not diving in a classic attack profile, but was continuing its steady climb. Yet no one thought to do so.
Well, Scott, we had this disparity between what the data indicates happened and what the people said they saw at their various altitudes. Any idea why?
Well, sir, the disparity baffles me. I thought about this for many days now, and I came to the realization that this data to me doesn't mean anything because I reacted to people I had operated with who were reliable. And when they reported at short range, they had decreasing altitude, increasing speed. I had no reason to doubt them. I had to make a split-second recommendation to the commanding officer, and I did.
So Lieutenant Commander Lustig trusts his men's judgment, and Captain Rogers trusts Lieutenant Commander Lustig's.
My confidence in Lieutenant Commander Lustig confirmed to me that the aircraft was, in fact, a threat. At 9 miles, I felt I could no longer delay defensive action. I granted firing permission.
When I looked at the timeline that he had to make a decision and the information he was given upon which to make that decision, it was my feeling, to this day I still feel the same way, that he made the right decision with the main thing in his mind: I don't want my ship to get hit.
Take order, track 4131.
The Vincennes' sophisticated combat information system gives its crew accurate information, but their fear has created a threat where none exists. After a month, Admiral Fogarty's investigation is over. He finds that the downing of Iran Air 655 was not the result of any negligent or culpable conduct by any US naval personnel. Captain Rogers acted in a prudent manner, given the information available to him and the short time frame in which he had to make his critical decision. Fogarty says Iran must share the responsibility for hazarding one of their civilian airliners in close proximity to hostilities. The US government publishes an edited version of Admiral Fogarty's inquiry, but it has concealed one key fact from the world. That fact will cast a whole new light on the tragedy of Iran Air Flight 655. In August 1988, a detailed inquiry by Admiral William Fogarty into the shooting down of Iran Air 655 concludes that the captain and crew of the USS Vincennes acted properly in the face of what they believed was a threat to their ship. But investigative journalist Roger Charles is not convinced. He reads a copy of the Fogarty inquiry and wonders why it contains no map showing the Vincennes' position.
I knew the fact that there was no such chart in the Fogarty report, again, was a signal, and a curious signal to me. Why is it not there?
Skipper, you better come down. Sounds like the Montgomery's got her nose in a beehive.
I'll be right there.
When Captain Rogers first hears that Iranian gunboats are harassing merchant shipping, the Vincennes is well south of the Montgomery and destined for port in Bahrain.
Gulf Sierra, this is Vincennes. Request permission to support USS Montgomery against surface contacts. Over.
Rogers asks Captain Richard McKenna, his surface commander, for permission to turn north to support the Montgomery. But McKenna only authorizes him to send his helicopter to investigate.
Roger that. Vincennes out. Vector in, Ocean Lord.
But Captain McKenna is later startled to discover that the Vincennes has turned around and has closed on the Montgomery's position. He orders him to leave the helicopter in place and turn back immediately.
My own personal opinion is it really did feel that they were looking for action when they went to see the Elmer Montgomery. My own feeling is that the situation was not out of control. It was really my call, and yet, even though they were assigned another station, they took it upon themselves to be there. And to that extent, I feel that, you know, I mean, that's where the general feeling, and not just my own, comes that maybe they were looking for trouble.
Jesus! Trinity Lord, this is Ocean Lord 2-5. We are taking...
But once the Iranian gunboats fired upon the Vincennes helicopter, the situation changed.
Close Ocean Lord's position at best speed.
The rules of engagement now allow Captain Rogers to respond with force.
General quarters.
Officer of the...
He's now authorized to head off in hot pursuit of the gunboats. But where does that lead him? In 1990, Roger Charles obtains a copy of a restricted report on the destruction of Iran Air 655 by the International Civil Aviation Organization. It gives the Vincennes coordinates. When Charles plots them on a chart, he makes a startling discovery. At the time of the shootdown, the Vincennes is over 4 kilometers inside Iranian territorial waters. By chasing the gunboats back into Iranian territory, Rogers inadvertently places his ship directly in the flight path of Iran Air 655.
If Rogers had not taken the Vincennes up to attack the gunboats, there would have been no shootdown of IR 655. I mean, that's clear. There would have been no ongoing surface action. Rogers would have had his radar screen set for the air side of things. The focus would have only been on the air picture. They would have had plenty of time to make a proper determination that this was a commercial airliner.
Despite the tragedy, the crew of the Vincennes receive a hero's welcome on their return to port in San Diego.
Any ship in the Navy is a multi-mission ship.
Captain, do you wish to engage the target at 20 miles?
Lieutenant Commander Scott Lustig is awarded a Navy Commendation Medal for his ability to maintain his poise and confidence under fire.
Take order, track 4131.
Captain Rogers receives the Legion of Merit for his performance as commanding officer of the Vincennes. Both men have since retired from the Navy. Every year, the families of those who died on Iran Air 655 commemorate their loss in the Persian Gulf. For Hussein Rezaian, the brother of Flight 655's captain, time has not healed the wounds.
I still feel the same way. Although I try to keep myself busy, not to think about it, because it's still, I mean, it's an unforgettable human tragedy. Even after 17 years passed, the horrors of what went on in that day, you know, still lingers on in everybody's life.
In a world where technology grows ever more sophisticated, fear, the most basic of human instincts, can create the greatest tragedies. the chaotic end of a bitter war. The world's largest airplane is loaded with orphans and headed for safety.
Advancing throttles now.
Time. Go.
We needed to get out of missile range.
But only minutes into their escape,
There was this loud explosion, one quick bang.
What was that?
the plane is out of control.
I kept going faster and faster and faster.
And headed for the ground.
Prepare for emergency landing! Mom, get down!
And then it was quiet.
South Vietnam, April 1975. After more than 10 years of fighting, the United States is on the verge of defeat. The end of the war is fast approaching. The enemy is closing in on the capital. On April the 4th, at a military base in the South Vietnamese capital of Saigon, a strange cargo is being loaded onto an enormous C-5A Galaxy. This is one of the largest planes in the world. The C-5A is primarily a cargo plane. Its hold is wide enough to carry tanks and tall enough to move buses. Above the cargo area, there's a small number of seats. Both the passenger area and the cargo bay are being pressed into service today. Dozens of Vietnamese orphans are being loaded onto the plane to be flown to safety. There are thousands of orphans to be flown out before the North Vietnamese take Saigon. Barb Adams works for the American Embassy. She and her daughter Linda are also fleeing.
On April 4th, my mom came home and told me that I had 1 hour to pack one suitcase and that we were going to be escorting the orphans on an orphan airlift back to the United States. When my mother and I went upstairs to the troop compartment, there's traditional airline seats, and all of the seats were filled with babies.
Sergeant Ray Snediger is in charge of loading the plane's massive cargo bay.
Make sure it's secure. We got people down there.
It was hard to control the situation. So many people were there, so much news media, so many people from the orphanages, so many military people, that it was actually pure chaos.
Just the day before, American President Gerald Ford announced the start of this desperate mission of mercy, a remarkable effort called Operation Baby Lift.
I have directed that C-5A aircraft and other aircraft especially equipped to care for these orphans during the flight be sent to Saigon. I expect these flights to begin within the next 36 to 48 hours.
Arnold Isaacs was covering the end of the war for the Baltimore Sun.
We had transport aircraft flying into Saigon every day, unloading military supplies and going back empty. And so it was decided that they could carry out the orphans on those returning flights. There were a lot of cameras and reporters out there covering the loading and the departure of the plane.
Captain Bud Traynor is in charge of Operation Babylift's first flight.
I got a call from the command post back in the States, and they said to me, how many people could you take out of Saigon if you were asked?
Because of the last-minute nature of the flight, they're running behind schedule. The plane is already 5 hours late, and Captain Traynor wants to be in the air. He orders the cargo bay doors to be closed.
Tell me what.
Doors closed. Loadmaster closed cargo bay doors.
The youngest of the 145 children have been crammed into the upper passenger section of the jet.
My mother and I were both assigned 3 rows of seats with maybe 4 to a row. So it would be 12 to 15 babies that we would be taking care of on the flight, feeding them, changing them, whatever they needed to have done.
Ina? Have a good flight, Ina.
There are 102 older children in the cargo area below. A number of adults from the American Embassy are also down here, keeping an eye on the orphans. Getting out of Vietnam starts by leaving the safety of the US base.
Advancing throttles now.
15. 20. Time, go.
Gear up.
I remembered that we had to take off at a pretty steep angle. And we didn't have seats, so we were to kneel on the floor between the seats during takeoff.
The cargo plane is heading for Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines. It's a 2.5-hour flight. From there, the orphans will be sent to adoption agencies in North America and Australia.
We needed to take off from Saigon and make a very rapid ascent to get out of missile range.
Cargo planes are easy targets. They're slow-moving and large. The possibility of an attack is very real. Just 5 days before, North Vietnamese troops captured the South's second largest city, Da Nang. South Vietnamese forces are retreating towards Saigon. In the capital, the situation is chaotic. Thousands of South Vietnamese civilians are desperate to leave.
Every day, another province was lost, especially after Da Nang fell. The population of Saigon, I think, began to fall into a sort of a paralyzed, petrified terror. Never, not for one moment that I remember, did you have a feeling of anyone rallying to defend the country.
How's the air in the troop compartment?
It's all right.
The baby's still squalling, or...?
They quieted down with all the noise.
Most are asleep.
Just as well.
Then, shortly after takeoff, as the plane climbs through 23,000 feet,
rapid decompression occurred, the plane filled with this mist. And so until it dissipates, you cannot see.
And there was this loud explosion, one quick bang.
What was that? And she said, I'm not sure. And you could feel the plane heading downward.
Debris started flying around.
It's a classic decompression. Somewhere there's a massive hole in the plane's fuselage. The air inside the jet is rushing out. At 23,000 feet, there's barely enough oxygen to breathe.
So I looked over at the co-pilot, and he was putting on his oxygen mask, and I thought, I'd better do that too.
The oxygen masks have dropped automatically, but on such an overcrowded flight, there aren't enough to go round. The ones that are available weren't designed to reach babies.
As I looked out the window, I saw the ocean, and I said to my mom, I said, we're crashing, aren't we?
At the back of the passenger compartment, Lieutenant Marshal Wirtz checks in with the crew. From there, she can usually see down to the cargo bay below her.
Pilot, this is Wirtz. I'm at the top grade of the troop compartment. I can see the China Sea out the rear of the plane.
What?
The cargo door is gone.
With more than 300 people on board, Captain Bud Trainor's jet has lost its breathable air. Somehow, his massive aircraft has been badly damaged. And he's a long way from a safe place to land. The inaugural flight of Operation Baby Lift will not make it out of Vietnam. The next few minutes will determine if anyone even survives. Oxygen levels are dangerously low. Unlike the passenger compartment above, there are only a few portable masks for passengers in the cargo bay.
My first priority after a rapid decompression is to get the aircraft back down to a breathing altitude for all the passengers, which is 10,000 feet.
Taking it back to the airport.
And so I turned 180 degrees, and now I'm heading back for Saigon.
But before he gets back to Saigon,
Sergeant Snedeker.
Trainer needs to know how bad the situation is.
The airplane is going down in a left bank. At that particular point, I sense that we're going down. I go to the cockpit.
Sir! See what's going on.
And Captain Trainer tells me to go to the cargo compartment to see what's happening down there.
When I was in my descent, I went to my maximum speed, which is what you're supposed to do, to get to 10,000 feet. I got to my maximum speed, and I pulled back on the yoke, and nothing happened. I kept going faster and faster and faster.
Trainer's plane is diving to the ground, and he can't get it to pull up. At the back of the plane, Ray Snedeker descends into the center of the storm.
When I came down, I noticed there was a lot of chaos in the cargo compartment. Obviously, people were frightened. So I'm actually crawling and stepping over people that are combat loaded on the floor. And I saw this huge gaping hole in the back of the airplane. All daylight back there.
And then Snedeker spots what could be an even more serious problem.
Hydraulic fluid is pumping out. Control cables are dangling in the breeze, flopping back and forth, and it just reminded me of looking at some spaghetti. That was the first thought in my mind.
The flight engineer also notices that the plane is losing its hydraulic fluid fast.
Pilot, we've lost number 1 hydraulic system. We've just lost number 2 hydraulics.
Hydraulic fluid helps the crew move the massive control surfaces on the plane. The rudder and elevator at the back, and the ailerons and flaps on the wing. There are 4 separate hydraulic systems on the plane. Now 2 of them are completely empty. And as Trainer dives towards 10,000 feet, his plane is going much faster than it should, and he can't pull up.
And I kept pulling back on the yoke, thinking that I could slow down, pull back more and more and more.
I'm not getting anything out of the yoke. How about you? Nothing.
And we were just totally puzzled. What is going wrong?
Pulling on his yoke should bring the plane's nose up and slow it down. If he can't pull the plane up soon, it'll plow straight into the ground.
And I'm concerned at that point we're still falling. We're not leveling out.
In the belly of the plane, Ray Snediger reports what he sees to the cockpit.
Pilot! Cargo bay! Go ahead.
And I told him that the part of the ramp was missing, pressure door was gone, and hydraulic lines and control cables had been cut.
The problem is now much worse than we thought.
Declare an emergency. Saigon, this is MAC 80218, and we're declaring emergency. We require
immediate return to base.
Unlike commercial airlines, there was nobody that came onto the PA system and announced what was happening. So I just kind of focused on the children.
After struggling with his crippled jet, Trainer's efforts finally seem to pay off.
And now the airplane levels itself off, and we're saying, wow, thank goodness that we're finally making it out of this.
As quickly as it leveled off, the plane begins to climb again. The nose of the jet begins pulling up into the sky.
And so I relax the yoke, and what happens? Nothing. I'm still going straight up now.
Unless Trainer can gain some speed, his plane will soon stall and tumble from the sky.
And it got higher and higher, and pretty soon I'm going almost straight up.
In desperation, he dips one wing, forcing the nose down.
I'm now in a very, very steep dive, and there's nothing I can do, seemingly, to bring the nose up. And so, counterintuitive, I added power, and when I did that, the airplane pulled itself out of the dive, and I started to go back up again, but this time I stopped it at 10,000 feet and rolled out, and I realized that I had learned how to control the airplane.
Trainer can't control his plane's pitch as he usually does, by pushing and pulling on his control column. Instead, by gently increasing and decreasing power to his engines, he seems to be able to keep his plane level.
At that point, I've realized that my only pitch control was the throttle.
The plane has descended to 10,000 feet. There's now enough oxygen to breathe.
100, it's safe to remove our mask. Gear down, and before landing checklist.
I headed directly for Saigon and began a descent and began positioning myself for a final, much like you would in a glider.
Don't worry. They're taking care of it up in the cockpit. We're gonna be down soon.
I'm trying to provide comfort to these passengers. At the same time, I know we're in serious trouble because the airplane is still going down.
Captain Trainer has coaxed his injured jet down to just over 4,000 feet. 11 kilometers from the airport, he turns his jet to line up with the runway when his plane surprises him again.
In the final turn to the runway, when I banked the airplane, the nose dropped and I couldn't continue my turn. I had to level the wings so that I had enough lift that the nose didn't keep descending.
Captain Trainer had to stop turning before he could line up with the runway. He's now losing altitude fast, and his prospects are becoming increasingly grim.
While we were working in the cargo compartment, Loadmaster came to me and said, we need to get upstairs because we're going to crash land. When I get to the top of the ladder, I've changed my mind and think I need to be in the cargo compartment when this airplane does get on the runway so I can help evacuate down there. As I try to leave, the flight engineer grabs me by my left elbow, throws me into a seat, and about the time I hit the seat, I can hear the ground screaming. It's a loud scream. It's coming closer.
Prepare for an imminent crash landing.
Get down on the floor! Prepare for emergency landing! Mom, get down!
When we started to go down, my mother and I were focusing on what should we be doing to brace for impact.
We had a big open field in front of us. When I got within about 200 feet of the ground, I said, "We're going in."
The plane is hurtling towards the ground at almost 500 kilometers per hour.
I reach down, grab my seatbelt, and when the seatbelt snaps,
we touched the ground relatively easily, and we popped back in the air. The jump seat said to me, "Bud, we're gonna make it." But I could see looming ahead of me was this huge, huge river. So I added power.
My mom was on one side of the aisle, and I was on the other. And she says, "Come over here and sit with me."
And even with full power at that point, I was still continuing to sink.
my whole life went into slow motion. The airplane is coming apart where I'm sitting. All kinds of debris is flying through the air. And it went on and on and on. It seemed like forever.
When I was going upside down, I remember saying, goodbye to my wife a couple of times, because I was gone. And then it was quiet.
When the plane came to a stop, I looked for my mom. I didn't see her anywhere. At that point, it was all a little bit surreal that I didn't even really know what had just happened. All I knew was that we needed to get the babies out of there.
Trainer and the rest of the cockpit crew have survived.
When I stepped out of the window, what was clear after you looked around, the airplane broke up into its component parts. The tail dropped off, the flight deck broke away, the troop compartment and the wings, they separated from the cargo compartment. The cargo compartment itself disintegrated, essentially.
Behind the cockpit, the plane's wings, which hold the fuel tanks, are burning. The passenger section of the plane is largely intact and separated from the scorching heat of the burning wings. Lieutenant Wirtz and many others who had been in the passenger section survive.
Then we started bringing babies out. And I could hear some helicopters coming. At that point, I was not looking for my mother because I had been assured that she was okay. I was to go to the hospital and just wait for her there. And then that's when I took a couple of the babies and walked over and got on.
A day that began with the promise of hope has ended in disaster. Just minutes after the crash of the first baby lift mission, rescue workers are on the scene searching for survivors. Almost everyone in the cargo area was killed instantly when the plane slammed down the second time. The dead, the injured, and the survivors are taken to hospitals in Saigon and Thailand.
Since I was not injured, I just took a seat and was waiting for my mother while they brought in a lot of the babies. Then somebody came over to me and told me that my mother had died. I remember holding on for dear life, so she said, "Come over here and sit with me."
Barb Adams' last decision was to be near her daughter.
Just as I sat down on the floor, we must have hit. She flew forward somewhere. And that's the last time I saw my mother.
"175 people survived the crash of the Air Force jet. But more than 150 have been killed. More than half of them were children.
And it was really such a blow in what had already been a very tragic and sad story of the collapse of South Vietnam. And then who would have thought that in the middle of all that tragedy, that the American Air Force would crash a plane full of Vietnamese babies and small children.
The investigation begins immediately. The next day, along with the investigators, Captain Bud Traynor returns to the smoldering wreckage of his plane on a special mission of his own.
I had to leave a couple of crew members out at the aircraft. And so I went back the next morning.
The bodies of 2 dead crewmen are still pinned down by the wreckage.
So we took a lot of tie-down chains and put them together and did the old heave-ho with a whole lot of people to move the flap of wreckage that was pinning the 2 crew members. And we got them out of there. It's always important to finish the job, and we did. But then I had a very naive approach to what was going to happen next. I kind of envisioned the guys in the silver helmets and put out the white rope. This is going to be a secure site. And that was when I got the shock that, hey, there are no guards out here. There's a Vietnamese soldier going through my suitcase wearing my flight jacket. And he had an AR-15, and I didn't.
That's my jacket. I'm Bud Traynor.
And we established that my coat had the same name on it.
That's mine.
As my flight suit. And so the coat he was wearing was mine. So he begrudgingly gave me my coat and then proceeded to go through the rest of my suitcase.
It's not only Trainer's jacket. Looters are picking the plane clean. Dave Scheiding is a structural engineer with the Air Force.
When we got to the site, we had some concern to begin with because there was a tremendous amount of civilian people out there actually picking up parts, which, of course, that didn't help us much as far as the investigation goes.
He's part of a team that goes to Saigon to try to figure out why the plane crashed.
This investigation was very unique from a couple of standpoints. The first standpoint, of course, the people taking parts away from us, but second, the country was in extreme chaos. It was essentially falling.
Frank Huskin is also part of the investigative team.
The NVA and the VidCong are all around, and we were only out there during the daytime, but it was a very uncomfortable feeling. Very uncomfortable feeling.
One of the first things we wanted to rule out was sabotage and a bomb. So we brought in dogs from the Philippines, bomb-sniffing dogs.
Take him back there to the rear of the plane.
With North Vietnamese soldiers so close, a direct attack or sabotage are obvious theories.
Initially, they had all thought that it had been a bomb placed in the luggage compartment, or it had been a missile that shot the plane down.
During the rush to board the aircraft, personal luggage was loaded but not thoroughly checked. This added to the speculation that a bomb may have been smuggled on board. The dogs find no trace of a bomb, and investigators find no evidence of explosive residue on the plane. It clearly wasn't attacked, but something had caused the cargo door to fail.
We had to find the doors, if at all possible, to make sure that we didn't have a problem with other C-5s that would cause this type of crash.
Soon, the massive C-5As will be desperately needed to get America out of Vietnam. Finding out what happened to this one couldn't be more urgent.
It was beyond important. At the time, we had approximately 100 C-5 aircraft. We grounded the C-5s until such time that we could figure out, one, what the problem was, and two, what were we going to do to prevent it from happening again.
Hey, guys!
As they examine the wreckage, investigators also try to find out why the crew had such difficulty controlling the plane.
Look how this is sheared off.
The cables that Ray Snediger saw leaking hydraulic fluid were the ones that controlled the plane's elevator. Since the elevator controls pitch, Captain Trainer had no way of guiding his plane up and down.
Cargo bay! Declare an emergency. Saigon. Emergency. Return to base.
When there's no control of the elevator, which allows for up and down pitch, an airplane will set up an oscillation up and down. His oscillation started as his nose was going down, and then it picked up speed, and then it started pitching up.
A falling plane's aerodynamic properties will force it to follow a predictable pattern. As lift increases, the nose naturally tilts upwards. Without the elevators to counteract the motion, it will continue until the plane moves so slowly that it stalls, falling back to the ground. It explains the strange motion of the giant C-5A. By adjusting the thrust to his engines, Trainer was able to keep the jet from rising and falling. Investigators believe the cables were sheared off when the cargo door exploded from the plane. But they still don't know why the door failed in the first place.
Then we made the determination we were going to have to try and find the doors.
But the doors are somewhere at the bottom of the South China Sea.
Our next problem was trying to figure out the ballistics of those doors. Nobody had ever even thought of figuring out ballistics of two doors flying through the air from 23,000 feet.
Relying on the airspeed and the altitude at the moment of decompression, investigators learned the plane was 46 kilometers from the coast of Vietnam.
When the doors went out, the airplane was moving across the water at about 600 feet per second. Therefore, we had to come down with a pretty good estimate for the Navy to even know where to look.
Ships from the U.S. 7th Fleet crisscrossed the South China Sea looking for the rear door. For the first several days, they can't find anything. The South China Sea has swallowed the evidence. At the crash site, investigators are becoming increasingly frustrated. A great deal of wreckage has been stolen by scavengers. An important clue could be among the pieces taken away. To retrieve these parts, the Air Force offers to buy them back.
The strategy was to provide leaflets throughout the city of Saigon and the surrounding area. We want every piece of material from the aircraft back, and we will also pay you if you will turn this in to us.
11 days after the crash, flyers are delivered to local officials and distributed throughout the city. Investigators do eventually recover the camera that was used by a film crew on board the plane. They hope it can show them exactly what happened. But the film inside the camera has already been removed. Another piece of the wreck turned in during the buyback program is just what they're looking for.
We were trying to get the black boxes back because that's the thing we really wanted.
All C-5As are fitted with a computer system that records vital information about the plane's operation. It records engine settings, airspeed, altitude, and hundreds of other parameters onto a magnetic tape. The system is called Mayday, Malfunction Detection Analysis and Recording System. It wasn't found at the crash site. The Mayday is eventually returned for a reward, but it proves to be a disappointment.
It didn't identify the reason for the doors and the ramps failing, but it did provide us a sequence of events in a lot of areas, including altitude, airspeed, the performance of the aircraft itself during that time frame.
As investigators continue to look for the cause of the crash, the situation in Vietnam gets worse. 2 days after they receive the Mayday, the South Vietnamese president resigns. On April the 23rd, 100,000 North Vietnamese troops approach Saigon. The noose around the city is tightening quickly.
While we were out in the rice paddy, you could see burning hamlets and villages, and in the distance they were on fire. You could hear the explosions and so forth of mortars.
While the situation in Vietnam continues to unravel, the US Navy finally has some success at sea. On April the 26th, they find the cargo ramp and part of the pressure door of Trainer's plane. If investigators don't find the answers here, they may not find them anywhere. They're running out of time, and they're running out of leads. When the ramp is examined, investigators make a disturbing discovery.
On that ramp, 2 of the stirrups were in great condition. They were perfect. They had not failed, so obviously it told us that at least 2 of the locks had just unlocked themselves.
The C-5A has 14 locks holding the rear cargo door shut, 7 on each side. The door recovered from the sea tells investigators that for some reason, 3 of the locks designed to hold it shut had either unlocked in flight or had never locked at all.
This flight was actually like a ticking bomb. When they closed the ramps, all those locks would look like they were in a locked position. When it took off, the fuse was lit. And as the aircraft climbed out, the fuse kept burning.
As the plane climbed away from Saigon, the pressure outside the jet dropped. The air inside pushed with increasing force against the cargo door. Then, as the plane passed through 23,000 feet, with 3 latches unlocked, the pressure on the door was too much.
With the 3 locks that failed all in a row, it was just too much load for the other 4 locks to actually pick up, and which resulted in the catastrophic failure of the ramp itself.
But investigators still don't know why the locks failed. Before they can find the answer, the situation in Vietnam deteriorates completely. Saigon is under siege. On April the 27th, the investigators take all of the evidence they can and leave. It's simply too dangerous to stay.
When we left Saigon, we were the last 2 C-141s to leave Tan Son Air Base. They were essentially losing their country at that time, and after that it was only helicopters that got out.
Investigators hope they have all the clues they need to solve the mystery of the crash. They know they won't be coming back to Vietnam to look for any more. April the 30th, 1975. The war in Vietnam ends. From the rooftop of the American embassy, the last remaining Americans in Vietnam are flown to safety. Back in the United States, investigators continue their work. Since the C-5 is in service around the world, they need to know why 3 locks on the cargo door failed.
When we got back to Texas, it was to help us verify the failure sequence.
Investigators discover something potentially alarming about the cargo plane's rear door. Parts from the C-5A were actually removed from the plane, cannibalized to service another cargo plane. The locks on the rear door of the C-5A are connected to each other by a series of tie rods. The rods can be lengthened or shortened to ensure the locks are completely closed. It's these tie rods which were removed from the baby lift plane. At the time, the enormous cargo planes were in constant demand.
The Air Force was very short of parts, and so they came up with a standard practice for maintenance that they could cannibalize parts off of aircrafts that are not being flown. It's authorized, and it's a good operation if you respect it and treat it properly.
The tie rods were replaced before the baby lift plane left for Saigon, but for some reason they hadn't held. To try to figure out what happened, investigators rebuild one of the locks that was supposed to keep the rear door closed.
We essentially built a working model of that ramp, and we had to do that because we didn't get all the parts back because of the people picking them up, parts out in the ocean and everything that we never got back.
Investigators aren't convinced that the problem is in the basic design of the lock. They suspect that before the plane left California, the engineers who replaced the rods didn't follow the proper procedures.
When we're talking about the locks, the distances that we're talking about are very, very small. We could be talking about the 16th, 32nd of an inch difference between being locked and unlocked.
The re-rigging was done before the plane left the United States.
Show me how you re-rig it.
After the locks were re-rigged, they should have checked to make sure they were working. That wasn't done. Without the check, no one would have noticed that the re-rigging was done improperly.
I would say that this accident actually started back at Travis Air Force Base in California. When the 2 tie rods that had been cannibalized earlier were replaced, they were not installed properly.
Loadmaster, close cargo bay doors.
When the door was opened and shut in Saigon, there was a warning that not everything was perfect.
We had some difficulty getting it to lock, so we had to open and close it 3-4 times. But it seemed to be routine, and in the heat of the moment, we didn't think anything about it.
But 12 minutes after liftoff, as the plane continued to climb, The 3 improperly closed locks were forced open by the building air pressure. The remaining locks could not take the extra load. The cargo door burst open and was torn off the fuselage.
You just can't take shortcuts. And if it's pulled a couple of rods out, run out and put them back in, that's not going to hack it.
The investigators have found their answers, and in their final report make specific recommendations that will make the C-5A safer. As a result, the Air Force designs a pin that slips through each lock. If the door isn't properly shut, the pins can't slide into place.
We essentially Murphy-proofed it by putting steel pins in there so that when the lock is in the over-center position, if you can insert these safety pins, then you know that the system is properly rigged.
Ray Snedeker retired from the Air Force as a Chief Master Sergeant.
This mission was probably the most discouraging in some ways based on part of the outcome. But also, it was refreshing in the fact that we displayed such good airmanship, such courage, and we were able to save so many people.
After 28 years of service, Bud Traynor retired from the Air Force as a colonel.
I think everyone second guesses themselves to see if there was something else that they could do. I am very fortunate in that I never found something that I said, I sure wish I had done X. It just wasn't there.
That pilot did a super job. The fact that anybody survived this crash is just remarkable. The ones that were saved are very fortunate that that particular crew was in charge of that aircraft. Being a pilot myself and knowing they only had 1 aileron and 4 engines, by rights they all should have been dead.
Investigation Board does not normally recommend decorations. That's not part of their job. But in this case, we recommended to the Air Force that they be considered for a high decoration.
Surviving crew members, including Captain Bud Traynor and Sergeant Ray Snedeker, were awarded medals by the Air Force for heroism and extraordinary achievement. One of the orphans that survived was baby Ina.
Ina?
Today, she's known as Kelly Jackson Brownlee.
April 4th, 1975. It's definitely a pivotal point in my life where I left part of myself behind in Vietnam.
When Operation Baby Lift resumed, Kelly, along with hundreds of other orphans, were flown to the United States. She was eventually adopted by a family near Seattle, Washington.
There was a 25-year anniversary in April of 2000, and it brought together all of the adults that were adopted from Vietnam. And I ended up meeting someone who's very special and actually ended up marrying.
Chris Brownlee and his wife Kelly were both airlifted out of Vietnam on April the 5th, 1975, one day after the crash.